everyone. Welcome to Sharing Our Stories, a podcast dedicated to promoting and highlighting the Indigenous Women's Entrepreneur Program here in Northern Manitoba. My name is Michelle Pruder, and I am your host. Today with me is Nikki Clace, a new Indigenous female entrepreneur currently living in Thompson, but whose roots dig deep in Churchill. Welcome, Nikki.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you today. So we're going to get right into it. And Nikki, I'd like you to tell us a bit about yourself and the business that you've recently started.
Okay, so my name is Nikki Clace. I was born and raised, fortunately, on the shores of the Hudson Bay and the Churchill River in a community called Churchill. While I was growing up, I had the great fortune of being able to learn the community and the gifts of the land through my mom and my granny and my family members. I was able to grow up in this great open playground that taught me so much. And so now I like to shift my focus onto sharing Churchill with the rest of the world.
Okay. So what led you to kind of want to share this? What did you see the need, or what opportunity did you see? Or tell us a little bit more about that, what it is that you share with people and how that relates to your business.
So what my goal is to share a true and authentic, no filters experience with people who are visiting Churchill that acknowledges the traditional knowledge from the various peoples who have called the area home, up until the modern day people who have learned a lot about coexistence with wildlife and other cultures. I think that it's a really special story that kind of shows all the mistakes and the lessons learned in building a community that lives so closely with wildlife and is able to coexist in modern day times.
Right, right. Because, I guess Churchill's really famous for polar bears, of course, and beluga whales and northern lights as well.
Exactly. And there's actually so much more as well. There's a ton of rich Canadian history, whether you're looking at Indigenous history or settler history, they're both very intertwined in the area. There's a lot of geography lessons to learn about the different eras of change in the world that have caused Churchill to become this beautiful little mecca of a peninsula on the Churchill River and the Hudson Bay. And there's also, of course, the ecology, tons of wildlife and trees and flowers and berries to learn about in all of the different seasons.
Wow. It's an amazing place, isn't it?
It is. And of course, you can't forget the most important part is wildlife safety. No matter where you're going, you need to be mindful of your surroundings. So I like to incorporate a few lessons and laughter that will keep you thinking about how you behave in the wildlife and what you can do to make your situation safer.
Right. Yeah, Churchill can be a scary place in terms of being exposed. My thing would be being exposed to the polar bears.
Yes, and essential polar bear safety is something that the independent traveler often misses when they come to Churchill. A lot of group travel does focus on having a great introduction and polar bear safety. And this is something that the typical independent traveler does not receive. And so I saw a nice opportunity to educate the public, share true and authentic stories, and also create a space for more Indigenous people and tourism in Churchill.
Okay. So that opportunity that you saw, you've touched on, group tours and independent tours. So it sounds like you've been able to sort of target your market and see that, okay, the group tours are sort of taken care of, but what about people that are just coming up on their own, often, I'm assuming, on the train? And
Yeah, so the train is one of the most economical ways to visit Churchill. And a lot of times when people are looking for ways to travel, they see the tour groups will come up through their ads first, and they may see flights for a large cost. But there is a way to keep it accessible to families and Manitobans. And I think that this is a project that really takes notice of them and gives this opportunity to them as well.
perfect. So, what skills or education, you know, did you have prior to starting? And I know you've mentioned that you've sort of been taught by your family growing up about the land and about the history. Is there someone in particular that really helped you, or anything you've kind of developed along the way?
So I think a combination of family history and a combination of learned experiences myself have really helped out. So if we were to look back at my family history, there's actually a long line of interpretation through Indigenous people working with Hudson's Bay Company and working in Churchill after the closure of York Factory. So our family has been doing a lot of work with Parks Canada and tourism over the years, including some trapping with our family members. So this is kind of something that comes naturally to me. Um, when I was brought into the tourism industry by a friend, I did not really think that I had the skills.
Right.
Um, But I really surprised myself. I had known all the facts from my mom. She was a guide and she had also done a lot of history in Churchill with Parks Canada. So I had learned a lot growing up with her. And then working with this organization, I had the opportunity to learn about my public speaking and speaking to groups, um, learning gestures so that I wasn't being offensive to anyone, like no pointing fingers or whatnot. And then, of course, things that I learned on the field. So I would learn tricks about helping people understand, or if I were to actually play the part of a bear behind a rock and show them how easily my body can hide behind, then they can begin to understand how easily a polar bear can hide anywhere in Churchill and how
Right.
they truly are a product of their environment and they need that skill to survive.
Right. Right. Well, and you touched there sort of on that customer service component of business, where really, like, the people that are coming to Churchill, they're from all over the world, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. And so learning to try and communicate with gestures as well will help you to communicate without knowing every language in the world.
Right.
So, this, like they say, a smile is universal. So it's always great to, wave, give a smile, and use your hands to direct as much as you can if you're not able to speak their exact language.
Yes. Yes. So, are there certain skills that you've seen? Like, it sounds like you've really got the skills for the service that you're delivering. That you've honed in on the best way to deliver the interpretive tours that you do. But what about the business skills? Like, are there any skills that you feel like you still need to develop, or something you wish you knew how to do better? Or tell us a bit more about that.
Absolutely. I very much believe in the fact that no one can ever know everything everywhere. So there's
Right.
always an opportunity to learn. When you make a mistake, that is a great opportunity to learn from what went wrong and how it could be better next time.
Yeah.
But what I feel myself, I really need to strengthen up is like the core operations and better understanding the financial processes that I will need to be responsible for. Um, So while I may be pretty good on the guest facing side, I also don't want to start a business that could potentially be very popular and could grow a lot faster than I can grow with my business. So I
Right.
have relocated to Thompson temporarily so I can go back to school and I can learn more about business essentials. And then I can prolong my career as a business owner before having to bring in extra direction or leadership.
Right, right. So, yeah, so you're in school right now.
I am, and I'm really nervous about it. You know, it's getting back, but I always like to think that getting uncomfortable with being uncomfortable is one of the first things you should do. So this is another uncomfortable spot for me, but it's okay. It's going to improve. We will get there.
Yeah. Is there anybody who stands out to you as a mentor or who has really helped you along the way with encouragement or skills
Yeah.
or
Yes. So I definitely have to mention the entrepreneurs or the Indigenous entrepreneurs in Churchill who I see out there working every day and sharing their stories of their families, their cultures, really building these names and their reputation for themselves. I admire them so deeply because they are the people who are opening the door for future business owners like myself.
awesome.
Also through the IWE program, I was paired with a mentor, and my mentor, I don't know if she's cool with me giving her a straight shout out, but Jackie Drum, she's been so great to talk to and to really help me work through some of these issues, like pricing and advocating for myself. Those are things I really didn't expect of having to do right away.
Right.
But having her there to reaffirm that what I'm feeling is the correct way to move forward, that it's good to advocate for yourself and it's okay to ask these questions with your partners and work on a relationship. Um, so I really appreciate everything that she has been able to offer me. But again, um, yeah, a lot of the people from my community that I see, you know, our tourism industry is developing, and all these small operators have come from maybe one dog sled to now a big interpretive company, or if we're starting with one small presentation, but now we are doing many presentations a week about our culture, our families, our heritage, our beautiful land that we call home. They're all just so inspiring to me. And one day I hope to be among their ranks.
Wow. And that brings up a really good point that for a lot of entrepreneurs, they just start out really small, right? Start with what you have, the equipment you have or the skills you have and give it a test run and gradually grow your business.
Absolutely. I think that so many times throughout our life, we can feel used or maybe sometimes abused. And
Yes.
this is what hurts us the most is that it happens to parts of our character that we cherish the most. And when we are able to take control of the narrative and realize those are my strengths, and now I am going to take it to the bank on them. You
Yeah.
know, maybe you have been um, doing home sewing for small projects, but you know, believe in yourself because you have that skill and you have that. And whatever you build, no one can take that away from you. So
Yes.
you definitely have this power, this wanted skill, and follow that little tiny voice that is saying, just try it, just try it.
Yes. Yes. I love that. So, that leads to my last question, which really I think you've answered and maybe you have something to add to it, but is there any other advice you have for other women who are perhaps just thinking about starting a business or who've launched a business and are still quite new to the idea of entrepreneurship?
Um, yes. And it might be just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
scary because maybe for years you worked with other organizations or companies, and with that, you've always stood behind another person, another company's name. But now it's time to step out and put that light on yourself and step out with your name.
Yep.
Whatever you want your name to emote or to hold with it, if you want it to hold love, if you want it to hold power, if you want it to hold equity, or just be a silly catchphrase that warms people's heart when they think about it. Take that and go with it. You have something. Um, and no one else has exactly what you have.
I love that. Yeah. And Nikki, you've named your business, right? What have
I
you
have.
named your business? Tell us a little bit about that.
So I actually took a very long time to find a name for my business. I really wanted to have a meaningful name. I wanted to have a name that was using the Cree language. I wanted to have it something simple and accessible for a non-Indigenous person to say, and also for them to understand what it means, something that would hold heart with them. So I went to my Auntie Flora and I told her what I wanted to share. And I said, I don't like telling people that this is my land or this is your land. I like to say this is ours and it's all of our responsibility to take care of it. And she said, well, that's it. You should be Kitaskinan, which is our land, meaning shared amongst the people land. And I really like that because it rolls off the tongue very simply. It's very simple to say. Um, and it, of course, means our land, all of us, not just Indigenous people, but sharing that responsibility with everyone and knowing that they have a part in it too.
Right. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Nikki, and for being willing to share your story. I am sure that other Indigenous women across Northern Manitoba will be inspired by your words. And it's just been a delight having you.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle. And also thank you so much to the Indigenous Women's Entrepreneurship Program for holding the small, tiny gathering in Turtle that I messaged to a friend and I said, do you want to go check this out with me? And she said, yeah, girl, I'll meet you there. So thank you for also bringing these programs to small communities and making them more accessible for people to take that first shy, nervous step and just come on out to a evening and listen to what possibilities, work through the workbooks, and they will help you find your footing and find your identity.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. Thank you. To learn more about the Indigenous Women's Entrepreneur Program or any other business services that Community Futures offers, visit our website at northcentraldevelopment.ca.